Good morning and welcome everybody. My name is Anca Harasim and I'm the Executive Director of the American Chamber of Commerce. This morning we closed a very important program that a very dedicated team has worked for over 6 months. And that is the second edition of a competitiveness report that serves the purpose of our advocacy work, but also we hope to be a good instrument to economists and to the government and to the authorities when it comes to formulation of public policies. We will walk you through the report and also through some follow-up actions that AmCham is prepared to undertake. But before doing that, I want to welcome all our friends and all our invited guest speakers, and it is my pleasure to invite Daniela Nemoianu, AmCham President, to address you the opening remarks.
Good morning again. On behalf of AmCham, I am delighted to welcome you at the launching event of our 2016 Competitiveness Report. Thank you for being here. It is a true honor. What I would like to do is to thank our distinguished guests today. And we are absolutely delighted to welcome you. And we have here top-level representatives of the government, the presidency, Romanian Academy, political parties, embassies, national agencies and strategic institutions, IFI's World Bank, EU Commission Office, and of course our partners from Coaliția pentru Dezvoltarea României, bilateral chambers, unions, media, and the civil society. Everybody, and when I say this, literally everybody asks me, what is so special about the AmCham Competitiveness Report? Let me tell you this. This is not just yet another macroeconomic tool. This is an impulse for positive disruption. We have to look at it as serving the higher purpose of Project Romania within the integrated steps we started 2 years ago, aiming at aligning energies towards positive development. And now it is time. Today, we do not talk numbers. Today, we are going to talk about the future by design. This is the sound of AmCham's voice looking beyond our immediate perimeter and actually trying to see more than a simple diagnostic tool. This is the voice of all of us AmCham members, and thank you our dear members for joining us today, because AmCham means not only US companies, actually the majority of our members are Romanian companies, local entrepreneurs, also state-owned companies, all together a community of business partners, citizens, hundreds of thousands of employees, part of the larger Romania. This also reflects our shared views of thinking about strategic themes, our shared views with our partners from Coaliția pentru Dezvoltarea României, where we coordinate the competitiveness task force, but also the EU funds, public procurement, infrastructure, and tourism ones. So there is a huge effort to align the business environment. Under the pressure of the regional and global developments, Romania's efforts to gain competitive edge must be scaled up geopolitically and economically. Macroeconomic growth has a number of benefits, but things are more dramatic in real life. And let's try to imagine for 1 second, all of us, that instead of being here in this premium location in Marriott today, we'll have the same discussion in Valea Jiului, in Anina, or in Târgu Neamț. How would things be different? How different? A lot more different that we are talking today. Please think about it, because sustainability of such growth becomes crucial, and it makes sense only if translated into better living standards, into better quality, and in general quality public services and modern infrastructure. Disparities are shocking in Romania. We must all be concerned and act as diligent keepers. we have the duty to start the healing and transformation process. I know that all of you do understand what is at stake this year and the years to come. We face a world of challenges which we must meet with strength and skill. And of course, opportunities we must build on. So absolutely we have to get this right, as standing still in the same obsolete pattern is no longer an option. This is about setting together a strategic course and competitive priorities that should uphold the national values and the long-term interest and enhance the country's role within its Euro-Atlantic partnerships. We bear the responsibility for doing our own part on the way to identify our common goals of democracy, prosperity, and security. Transforming Romania requires a collective effort. And yes, we cannot forget. But this evolution must advance at all levels. This is no little thing, by all means. This is about all stakeholders gearing up for an intense integration exercise, as we strongly believe in Romania and its potential to become better and stronger. Thank you all for making this happen. Thank you. Thank you. I would like to invite Mr. Dean Thompson, the Deputy Chief of Mission, the US Embassy, to address the audience, followed by the message of the Presidency and the keynote remarks of the government. Thank you.
Daniela, thank you very much. Thank you for those important remarks, and congratulations as you wrap up your tenure as President of AmCham and as AmCham moves towards a new board in the coming days. We have some very exciting times ahead of us, and we appreciate all the support and effort that this current board has made under your leadership in taking us to a very important point. Mr. Deputy Prime Minister, President Darban, distinguished guests, it's really a great pleasure to be here today and to have the chance to congratulate the Chamber on launching this very important report. I had an opportunity to review the executive summary of it this morning, and I have to say I think it's going to be a very important tool for dialogue and for efforts to move forward, and I think Daniela did an excellent job of outlining the very real consequences and opportunities for Romania as we look at the types of issues that need to be tackled through this effort. Now, as Romania tackles necessary reforms and establishes a solid foundation for future growth, the United States will be a strong and dependable partner for all stakeholders, including the government, parliament, and the business community. By working with the American Chamber of Commerce, the Coalition for Romania's Development, Coaliția, and others on fiscal and regulatory regime changes, the government has signaled its commitment to transparency. Notably, the government recently agreed to a third action plan for good governance. Improvement of the business climate is also a very important element of the U.S.-Romania strategic partnership. But Romania's work remains unfinished. The government and parliament must continue reforms focused on sustainable development and full adherence to the rule of law. Building and maintaining investor confidence is essential for new investments to be made and for existing investments to expand. One excellent recent symbol of progress that is being made in this area is Ford's announcement that it is moving a second vehicle production line to its plant in Craiova, and I had the very distinct honor of joining the Vice Prime Minister for that opening and announcement last week, and it was a very exciting event to be a part of. If a firm as well known and respected as Ford is having success in Romania, then it signals to other potential investors that Romania is a good place to do business. Romania's regulatory climate still lacks some cohesion and long-term vision, and Romania must meet this challenge by passing and implementing regulation in a transparent, predictable, and stable manner. Continued improvement of the consultation process with stakeholders is going to benefit all parties. Romania remains in need of structural reform that will reduce regulatory barriers, encourage greater entrepreneurship, and open sectors to greater international competition and investment. These reforms include improvements to the country's physical infrastructure, a deepening of administrative capacity, and the professionalization of state-owned enterprises. And I would note all of these are areas that the report talks about in great detail. We support Romania's efforts to ensure sustainable growth based on a transparent, predictable, and stable investment climate, and reinforced by stakeholder consultations and sound corporate governance. I'd like to close by applauding AmCham's publication of this report. The United States looks forward to working with Romania to further strengthen our trade and investment ties and to make it an even better place to do business as we go forward. Thank you.
It is my distinct pleasure to invite Mr. Cosmin Marinescu, a presidential advisor, to present to you the message from the President of Romania.
Thank you. First of all, I want to thank you, Mrs. Nemoianu and Mr. Thompson, for the messages regarding our economic cooperation and for the vision shared about our economy and our development perspectives. I'm very happy to be here at this AmCham event, and I'm glad to see so many American and Romanian business representatives. Now, let me present you the message of the President of Romania, His Excellency Mr. Klaus Iohannis. Mr. Vice Prime Minister, dear ministers, distinguished members of the diplomatic community, dear American friends, dear friends of Romania, ladies and gentlemen. It is a great pleasure to send you today my best wishes and congratulations at the launch of the Competitiveness Report prepared by the American Chamber of Commerce in Romania. My message today is about change, about competitiveness, about the need for a performing business environment. This is what we want to do for you, and this is what we want to do for Romania. I welcome this kind of events of the business community. These events always represent a good occasion for dialogue and for a better understanding of the opportunities and challenges faced by the Romanian business environment. Ladies and gentlemen, economic development cannot exist without markets and economic freedom, without private property and entrepreneurship. All these are true pillars of progress and economic prosperity. This is why it is essential to understand the importance of these benefits, which were obtained with great sacrifice more than 25 years ago at the moment of the Romanian Revolution. Those who fought then for freedom had hopes and dreams, and now we have the duty to carry them forward. Romania's change by economic performance and competitiveness can be the best country project after the transition period and European accession. We have the strength, and it is time for Romania to make the step beyond the minimal standards of a functioning market economy. It is time to become a consolidated market economy with strong references for long-term development. We need, of course, to develop a strong private sector, independent of the state and political powers. This will bring a solid middle class as a vector for stability and progress. In this sense, the state must truly protect property rights, freedom and fairness, and the proper functioning of the market economy. Building a competitive economy starts with the institutional quality for the business environment. In this respect, transparency and predictability are essential in consolidating the economic trust that Romania enjoys today. Romania has real opportunities and competitive advantages which foreign investors appreciate and want to benefit from as best as possible. The good economic results reflect mainly the efforts of the business environment. At the same time, the business environment faces various fiscal administrative, and bureaucratic difficulties. From this point of view, we still have some problems. If we look at, for example, the lines in front of the public administration offices, or the harmful bureaucracy for business development. It is clear that these institutional constraints must affect as little as possible the economy and the way of doing business in our country. Romania must become a country where work is properly rewarded, where success is based on fairness and performance, not on favors and political connections. This is exactly why the fight against corruption must continue. Only by solving this major problem, we can take advantage of the real potential of our economy. Romania has made important steps in this direction. I, as President of Romania, have a strong commitment to support the fight against corruption. Also, along with economic competitiveness, it is important to encourage good governance. This means, first of all, strengthening the rule of law and the democratic institutions. In Romania, the law must be the same for all, because everyone will be respected when nobody is personally favored. It is essential to protect the judicial independence, to consolidate the integrity of governance, and to have a more efficient and responsible parliament. Ladies and gentlemen, Romania's modernization needs both foreign and Romanian capital. We are glad to see that the United States of America is and will continue to be one of the most important partners. We are also convinced that our economic relations can become more consistent, especially in the context of our strategic partnership. In this respect, we are confident that the United States can become, in the following period, one of the top foreign investors in Romania. Our economic cooperation can be extended by using all the opportunities from the Romanian economy. For American investors, the IT&C sector can become a true hub with regional impact, and this is just one example. There are many other sectors with very high investment potential, like agriculture and energy, aviation, or research and development. Also, the Romanian capital market offers great opportunities, especially as there are clear perspectives that it will be upgraded from a frontier to an emerging market. The Romanian economy is truly favorable for investment. We have one of the highest economic growth rates in the region, and almost all macroeconomic imbalances have been gradually corrected. Public debt is low, and Romania enjoys monetary stability and a sound banking system. To all this, we can add high-skilled human capital and a flexible labor market. But we need to be consistent and have a vision for long-term economic development. This needs a country project assumed and continued regardless of future political changes. To build requires continuity, so that we only make steps forward. Ladies and gentlemen, we are convinced that the American investors will appreciate the opportunities and competitive advantages of the Romanian economy. In time, these investments will generate that expected change of the economic climate, namely an open, capitalist economy in which the best wins and all people improve their lives as much as possible. I congratulate American investors and their activity in Romania. I also congratulate the American Chamber of Commerce in Romania for its contribution in supporting the Romanian business environment. In the end, I wish you to have the strength to accomplish all your projects, but also the ambition to start new ones, hoping that you will face the future with confidence and understanding that big changes take time. Thank you.
It is my pleasure to invite Mr. Costin Borg to address the audience and also congratulate him in his Vice Prime Minister position and also coming and representing the private sector. We have a good partner in you and your government.
Thank you very much. Mrs. Nemoianu, Mr. Marinescu, dear guests. Being here today, it's a great pleasure and it's a great honor. It's a great pleasure because reports like this help the government move forward. And the ideas of public policy highlighted that you're going to see probably in few minutes are the ones that need to be taken into account and developed further. But I want to start a little bit with an anecdote. And I think you saw that my name was not on the board. And why I want to tell you an anecdote? Because there are a lot of people in this audience who know me for a long time and who know that I tend not to be late. And if I'm late 2-3 minutes, usually the first meeting in the morning, because I'm a late riser and try to use every minute before jumping out of my room. Why I want to highlight this anecdote? Because before coming here today, there was a rumor that I would not come. So, because it's probably normal, and without saying anything wrong about my predecessors, probably this was the habit of announcing that you come and then nobody shows up without even a notice. Why I'm saying this to you? Because when you look at the competitiveness report, when you look at doing business in Romania, we also need to remove the barrier of perception. So the problem is that when we have good people in front of you, and I do not want to talk about this government, but about people who work in the administration, and I see here somebody from ANAP. The people from ANAP are not here because they are presenting their report today. But the point is, when you have good people in front of you, give them the trust. So do not start the day thinking that the administration is necessarily corrupt and is necessarily bad. Sometimes you're going to have good surprises in the day, and you're going to have very good people in front of you. And this is my experience in the Ministry of Economy. There are good people in the ministries, believe me. There are people who want to do good for their country, and believe it or not, there are people who are proud to work for the administration. Yes, there are people who are not so extraordinary, and that's why we have an anti-corruption campaign. That's why we do a lot of things to improve the administration. But I think Romania still suffers from a perception issue. And I think that when you're going to look at this report, please look at the things that are correct and very clear, and they're, lack of infrastructure, this and that. But please also look at things that influence our perception. Because I think doing business in Romania is it's positive, and I'm speaking it from my perception as a head of a multinational company up to a few months ago. And you are here because you are doing good business. If you wouldn't do good business, you wouldn't be here. So most of you, it's not easy. I'm not saying that it's easy to do business in Romania, but I'm saying in the end, in the 12th hour, you manage to run your companies, you manage to arrive to the expected results, and you have fun in the meantime, with a little bit of stress, but in the end you have fun. Imagine what life will be without having the hurdles of dealing with the administration. It will be a little bit boring for the expats, isn't it? What you gonna tell your friends at Thanksgiving dinner, at Christmas dinner, if you're not gonna tell them the anecdotes and how you managed to fix the issues in the 12th hour? But, okay, now I'm finished with it because probably you have better things to do than listen to me. And then what I want to tell you about competitiveness. We are very much in line with what is written here, and we are very much in line with the President's message, which says, to build, you need continuity. The country needs a long-term strategic vision. The country needs a long-term plan that gives you stability and reliability and so on and so forth. What we are doing for it, in the government meeting tomorrow, if everything goes well, we're going to pass a government decision to have a competitiveness council an interministerial competitiveness council who will precede, if the parliament will approve, the council that Madam Paul Voss in parliament is promoting, the law for creating a CONACO, Council of Competitiveness, a National Council of Competitiveness. The country needs this. The country needs a long-term vision, a long-term strategy. So this will happen tomorrow, and the government will also do some things. So we are working at let's say, pillars, a draft of economic vision that very soon we're gonna put in debate together, probably with the Romanian Academy, with political parties, with other interested parties, business environment, unions, and employers association. For this, we need, in the Ministry of Economy, and this I'm coming back to what I was saying a few minutes before, we need in the Ministry of Economy a center of strategy, a center of expertise that's capable of answering to these long-term questions. So to transform the Ministry of Economy from an administrator, a CEO of a holding of state enterprises, into a center of strategy, into a think tank. I think this is clearly important. And this responds to the other question of how do we manage state companies? And the question is, state companies should be managed by professional administrators, and the state as a shareholder should give its line and its strategy, like any shareholders, should not interfere with how many, I don't know, screws and nuts we buy on a daily basis. It's not the job of the ministry. And when we are talking about all this, when you look at the competitiveness report, I'm coming back to what the president was highlighted in the message read by Mr. Marinescu. We need to think long term. We need to think what are the lines that the government and the society should put forward that stay here despite political changes. How Romania should change in the future. And you'll have some answers in the report that will be shown to you in a few minutes. And hopefully we will have a debate this summer before elections and during the electoral campaign and with the next government of what is the line, where Romania should go. I would finish by saying I believe that Romania is a good place to do business. Again, I believe we need also to look inside ourselves at the perception that we have about Romania. And I do believe that you'll find Romania in years to come the place to be, at least in this part of Europe, if not in the world, from the point of view of investment and doing business. Thank you very much.
You gave us the best news of the day, that from now on we'll have a counterpart in the government to measure, to monitor competitiveness and also identify steps to improve it. To complete the picture and the views from the government, I invite Manuel Costescu, who is heading a department, very complicated to say, Department for Foreign Investment and Public-Private Partnership. Manuel had a chance to meet Coaliția Steering Committee and also AmCham members. So now we have a larger audience for you to present, to share with us your work.
Thank you very much. Distinguished guests, it's a great pleasure to be here. It's also very easy to be here because all I need to do is I need to summarize what every speaker before me said. So let me just start with Mrs. Nemoianu, who said future by design, and then Mr. Thompson, who talked about Ford, the president and his envoy, talking about IT, about agriculture, about aerospace as priority industries, about the good conditions for investment. The Deputy Prime Minister talking about the normality and essentially the $70 billion invested in Romania. Well, distinguished guests, it's really a great pleasure to be responsible for a trade and investment agency because what I am in charge of promoting is really, in essence, a nugget for me, in my view. What we're trying to do is we're trying to do two things. We're trying to build an institution and we're trying to also run the operations as we're building that institution. Let me talk about building the institution. As Anka Harasi mentioned, we are now in the process of building a trade and investment institution. Why do we do that? There are immense synergies to bring together the trade, so read export arm of Romania with the investment arm of Romania. The synergies are as follows. Right now we have a network of people in many locations outside Romania who now will be in charge of both promoting exports and promoting investments into Romania. As you might know, Romanian exports could be much higher. Right now, 85% of the exports come from firms like yours who are FDI driven. However, about 15% are driven by smallish or medium-sized companies. We believe that it is our responsibility to work with these 15% and a little bit more, don't quote me exactly on the number, but in essence with these companies and understand why don't they export to more markets? Why don't they export more products? Why don't they partner up in exporting so that they lower their costs? Those are all questions that we're trying to answer, if you want, from the base internally. This is essentially for me the very tactical strategy of exports. Here I'm trying to focus specifically on companies and not so much on sectors. I don't want to create a strategy that reads well. I want to create a strategy where everybody knows on any given Tuesday what they need to do. And we are building that. Now, the foreign network of experts who are promoting these exports are going to be really the point of entry of these exports into the global market. Now, going back to investment, so the investment arm, these are different people. They are talking to a different group of people. They are talking to you, the investors on the ground. That is my first priority. Secondly, they are talking to new investors. And right now, my team at Invest Romania, they are having interviews with people who view Invest Romania as the first point of entry into Romania. There are IT firms, there are agricultural firms, there are aerospace firms, there are car manufacturers who are using us as a sounding board for data, for location search, for information around unemployment, around education, and we are working in partnerships. And this is very important. This is one of my first priorities, to work in partnership with the regions. So we work very closely with the regions that promote themselves. To give you an example, it's much easier for me to promote a region that already knows how to promote itself, and hence work with them in talking about exactly the things I mentioned, locations, unemployment, education, and so on. Secondly, to work together with other enablers of the promotion of Romania. Some of them are consulting firms, some others are natural venues of promotion, such as Consilii Județene or mayor's offices or industrial parks. What I have done, and I'm doing it as rapidly as I can, is I forge partnerships so that the 15 people of front office of Invest Romania are not 15, but are rather 400 people. So it's much easier to cooperate with 400 people than to single-handedly promote Romania with 15. So I think that partnership is something that I'm trying to institutionalize and to leave behind me even as I leave. Another thing that I wanted to mention on the investment side is we're trying to prioritize industries. So in my view, it is more important to be able to just say at the beginning of the year, look, we're going to look at these 6 industries. They might not be the only industries, we completely understand, but these are the priorities that we're going to go through this year, and then we can revisit. But it is important that everybody at the Ministry of Finance, at the Ministry of the Prime Minister's Office in economics, they have a set of industries that are proactively promoted. On the reactive side, so as investors come into us, we have an open door policy. We do not pick winners. I personally don't know how to pick winners. I think it is important for every investor to be given its fair share of attention and of effort. And we are trying to help every investor based on their needs and their wants. We are not going to push investors into one region versus the other. We are going to take the investor where they want to go. On that front, and this is what I want to close with, is it is an imperative for an agency, a government agency such as the Romanian Trade and Invest Agency, which probably will be called Business Romania going forward. it is important that we also contribute and we work in partnerships to reduce the inequality within regions. And what we're doing for that is we're trying to understand what are the capabilities of the underserved regions and how can foreign investments as well as exports from those regions help the region come out. And for that, we need to, again, work a lot in partnerships, both with the regions, with the entities that are on the ground, but also with the ministries that are working in those areas. And this is, if you want, the focus of the later part of this short mandate of sorts, because it is critical to set the institutional framework in place to be fair to investors while helping reduce these economic imbalances. For that, concretely, what we have done is we've started consultations with, and we work tied to the hip with the Ministry of Finance on state aid. We're trying to use state aid, for example, as a strategic lever. Right until now, it was a very good investment. So $1 invested in state aid, I think, has a multiplier of about 4 over the period of 5. I'm told it's about 5, over the period of investment. But what we're trying to do is we're not trying to just look at it as an investment for the Romanian people, which again, even that message is great, but rather to use it more strategically. And for example, what we have done is we have slowly tilted the way we are thinking about state aid to prefer counties within the large geographic regions to be preferred based on their unemployment. So what we've done is we have increased the granularity so that, let's say, in the western region, there are some counties within the western region that are very successful and others that are not so successful. If an investor wants to go to the less successful one, we would like to help them. We would like to encourage them. This is, I believe, the role of the government, to be able to encourage them, but we will never drag them by the neck and tell them, no, you don't go to this successful place, you go to this other place. So this is, in a nutshell, what Business Romania, through its trade and investment arms, are doing, and I hope that we're going to have bilateral conversations in the near future. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So we reached the highly expected moment of presenting you the results of the report. I would like to first present the team that has worked on the report. We have 3 members of the team, Ilana Guțu, who are here, Sânziana Partam and Florin Diaconescu, and also Andreea Manole and Ciprian Goriță. Ciprian. They all worked together, and we'll have 3 of them presenting you the results. So Ilana, as a team leader, I give you the microphone.
Good morning, and thank you very much for being here with us to share with you some of the key findings we have come across while performing a quite extensive, I would say, analysis for the purpose of 2016's edition of Romania Competitiveness Report. I will start. What we wanted through this report, we tried to assign a rating to Romania's competitiveness. And in order to do so, we have referred to a certain methodology that I will further detail. It will not be too much to bore you, I promise. The only purpose for discussing the methodology will be for us to have a common ground for our discussion. Basically, through this report, I will start with a disclaimer, maybe. This is not a perfect methodology, and for sure it is not exhaustive. What we planned here was, like goes for everything else in life, I guess, it's preferable to do something that is not perfect than to do nothing at all. So starting from a methodology as we designed it, basically we acknowledge the fact that there are other excellent competitiveness reports, like the IMD World Competitiveness Scoreboard or the World Economics Forum Global Competitiveness Report that assign and look at the country's competitiveness in full. And when we look at the results of these reports, basically we noticed that one of them shows an accelerated performance for Romania, whereas the other shows stagnation. In our report, we try to capture what is the effect of the government policies on competitiveness of Romania. So to do so, we have analyzed 83 indicators, mostly looking at 2014 data because of availability of information, basically. And we clustered this within 5 areas. It would be the first one, general, where we have included those indicators that represent desired outcomes of the economic policy. Then we look at public administration with the purpose of assessing how effectively and efficiently regulation is enforced. We have also looked at physical infrastructure from the perspective of seeing how well the government manages to provide a landscape for businesses. Within human resources, we addressed how policy has influenced the labor force, healthcare, education, and research. And fiscal and monetary comes to highlight basically what was the impact of the policy on access to capital and also on price stability. In addition to that, that went as numbers within our ranking, we have looked at 2 other elements. Legislative framework, basically here we captured a snapshot of Romanian legislation today, and an executive survey that was conducted amongst the CEOs conducting businesses in Romania with the purpose of including their opinions, even if subjective, about how is the progress of our country as compared to EU average. Basically, this was, let's put it like this in terms of inputs. Now, what we have assessed in terms of outputs, we have looked at 3 things. First, we tried to see what is the performance of Romania as compared to EU average, EU 28 average. Try to see where Romania stays in terms of benchmarking it against 6 other countries in our region. And also, we captured the dynamics since the 2011 edition of this report. When comparing to EU average, we had 3 categories of indicators. Where you will see green in the report is good. That means performing above EU average by more than 15%. Neutral blue is performing within a range of plus minus 15%. And red, disadvantages, that is falling below 85% of EU average. That was for the methodology. And now moving forward to our aggregated results, we can see in the graph here that in terms of the overall score development, Romania is doing good, shows a slight overall improvement as compared to the previous edition. And when we compare this against the areas we have looked at, we see that we have a decline in human resources and also in stable in physical infrastructure, but the others are pretty much at the same level. In general indicators, the decline comes basically from the impact of current account balance per capita, but this Senziana will further detail. Now looking at the indicators from the perspective of their numbers, we have assessed the volatility scores. What we have here, we have the number of indicators. So if before on the previous slide, we also took into account the gap to EU average in computing the score, now we are looking at the number of the indicators, and we see that between 2011 and 2016, there is not much change. Basically, it is one indicator changing, adding to competitive disadvantages. So from the perspective of the number of indicators, we could say that things are show a slight negative trend. So overall, the balance of advantages and disadvantages remains similar to 2011. The opposite graph here, Romania volatility scores, depicts a breakdown of the indicators per each of the areas we have analyzed. Now here we see visually, we can depict a lot of red within physical infrastructure and human resources, and I think this does not come as a surprise for any one of us. Looking now at the balance of advantages, and disadvantages, what we see is that we have 40 advantages and neutral indicators now. And this comes from 37 indicators that were also positive in our previous report in 2011. So that would give us a sense of stationarity, with 3 additional indicators moving clusters from disadvantages to advantages. On the other side, when we look at the disadvantages, 43, this consists of 39, that would be the sum of 18 and 21, which were also disadvantages in 2011, and 4 additional indicators that from being advantages become disadvantages now. This analysis, I think, becomes more obvious when we look at this chart here. So we have, in orange, 37 indicators that remain positive, 21 indicators that even though that remained negative, but showed the worst performance as compared to EU average. We have 18 indicators that show the more accelerated performance than EU average, even though they are competitive disadvantages. And we have 3 additional rebellious indicators that changed clusters and became positive, and 4 having the reverse trend. Now you are most likely wondering which are the rebellious indicators that change clusters over this analyzed time frame. And here, positive news would come from the control of corruption, broadband connection rate, that would be, in terms of enterprises, having a higher broadband connection rate, and the weight of high and medium tech employees as a percentage of total labor force. Now, the 4 bad news come from tourism. Here we have the dynamics of the indicator tourist trips that shows a decline, so reflecting the evolution in tourism. We have the current account. We really have to learn to buy Romanian manufactured goods. I mean, I think this is the most first thing that can help. Railways and accidents at work. This, I think, is quite surprising. Now the pie charts below show the same categories as discussed before, but for each areas that we have analyzed. Visually, we can, and as a positive note this time, we can see a lot of purple within the general indicators section. So that would be indicators that even though are clustered as competitive disadvantages, show no better performance as compared to EU average. But again, here Senziana will tell us which they are, what they refer to. As I said at the beginning, we have taken 3 perspectives in our analysis. We have looked at the comparison to the EU average, and you have seen this already reflected in our score development as well as in our trend, volatility analysis. Then we have looked at the dynamics since the 2011 report, and that you have seen reflected in our trend assessment on the previous slide. And the final perspective we have taken was to look at Romania, how it compares to other 6 countries we have selected within our region. Here things are, I think, quite straightforward. Not surprisingly, we are better positioned than Bulgaria and Hungary, and worse than Austria and Czech Republic. So I think this comes as reasonable for all of us. Somehow counterintuitive, I would say, is the result of Poland. But this is a disclaimer bias I would put on our analysis, because this comes mainly from the fiscal financial indicators, where we have quite a few number of indicators, and therefore the analysis is a little biased. As per the information provided by the World Bank, basically Poland scores quite bad in the depth of credit information, and this comes and impacts a lot its result here. This nice arrow chart here gives us some context. Basically, comes and put our results from this report together with the results of other competitiveness reports. And now you can call us optimistic. As from the perspective of our report, we are a little bit closer to EU average as per the other reports. We might be, but it is not precisely this feeling that I would share with you today. It is what I have sensed within this team while doing this analysis and working hard for this to make happen today. I think I would call hope. and that would be hope for the future of Romania, and hope that our work can increase, even by a little, chances to make a difference. As Anca already mentioned, and Daniela also, we do not plan for this to be just another diagnosis report. Within AmCham, we plan to translate it into an action plan and to help us work more effectively with Romanian authorities. It is precisely for this purpose that we have gone beyond analyzing hard data, and we have developed a series of policy recommendations that my colleagues will further detail. But I will just add, if there are only 7 things to take away from today's event, please let those be the following. Demographics and healthcare. We witness a decline in Romania's population. We need reform in healthcare. Infrastructure gap. I think that is self-explanatory. Brain drain phenomenon. Let's reverse this. We have the positive experience of the IT sector. Research and development. Maybe start by allocating money to it. Agriculture. I think here 2 straightforward measures could be in the sense of decreasing the exports of products that have a low value added, and try to keep them within our country and add value here and then export them. Also, the irrigation infrastructure, I think it's worth mentioning. Education. Let's better calibrate this with the labor force to reflect this in what companies really need. And overall, and linking this all together, I think would come coherence of our public policies. Thank you very much. Now we'll go forward to discussing the overall picture of general indicators. Sanziana. Thank you.
Thank you, Ileana, and good morning, everybody. Well, I have the pleasure now to walk you through. Thank you, Anka. I have the pleasure now to walk you through some of the highlights that came out of this very complex analysis that Ileana just talked about. I will start with the general indicators, the first segment that we analyzed. And what we try to capture with the general indicators is how the public policies are actually reflected overall in economy and society. What you see, and Ileana mentioned that overall the general indicators saw a decreasing trend from 2011. And this comes mainly because, based on the economic performance indicators and tourism. This is somewhat surprising, especially that we all know and have been hearing how Romania has been doing a lot better in economic terms in the past few years. But here I think the situation is quite complex, and it becomes even more complex when we start comparing Romania with EU and with the other peer countries. Let me start with the good news. Romania saw a robust GDP growth. We looked at the GDP per capita, and we saw an increase from 6,300 in 2011 to 7,500 euros per capita in 2014. This marks an increase of 4.5% yearly during this period, which is much better than the EU average of 2.8%. The sobering aspect, however, comes when we look how far away still we are from the EU average. Romania's GDP per capita is only 27% of the EU average. That's a long way to go. But this is not necessarily bad news within all circles. For foreign investors, for example, to see such a big gap, to see such a long way ahead, spells loud and clear growth potential. Well, if this is the case, then we probably should see a lot of foreign direct investment coming into the country. This is only theoretical, though. If we look at the actual numbers, what we see is the FDIs per capita are a mere 13% of the EU average. This is somewhat disconcerting, especially when we know how important foreign direct investments are for an economy. Why? Because they bring transfer of know-how, they bring increased competition on the ground locally, and they also enhance the skills of the people they employed by this transfer of knowledge and by training. The trend of the FDIs is also not positive. Basically after the economic crisis, FDIs have not recovered. If we look at them in nominal terms, we are at the same level as we were in 2004. This is 10 years ago. So we need to do more in this sense. And I think I heard recently an example that I want to share with you here. It was from an economist at UniCredit, and it's very intriguing, I would say. The example is Nokia, and the tagline is the following: even failed foreign direct investments have positive spillover effects. Why? Because when Nokia left, they left 2,000 employees, or at that time unemployed people, but with much better skills and much more employable than they were before Nokia came in. As a result, a lot of them were actually taken in by DeLonghi, who took over the premises of Nokia after they left. The other aspect I would like to highlight is exports. Exports have had very good evolution from 2010 to 2013, but then they started declining. And they are being taken over by imports that are growing at a much faster pace. And this is widening the trade balance. Just to give you an example, exports in 2004 represented 36% of Romania's GDP. And they grew until 2014 to 42%. This is an okay growth, but definitely not great, especially if we start comparing with other countries. In Hungary, we saw a growth in this period from 63% of GDP in 2004 to 96% of GDP now. When we think about how important a growth driver exports can be for our country, we really do need to understand that a lot more attention should go into this, into stimulating exports. The last item I want to highlight from our general indicators analysis, and the very worrying one, is demographics. Romania's population has been constantly declining since 1990, and only in the past 10 years we saw a 7% decline. The predictions are not great either. By 2050, it is estimated that Romania will decrease its population by another 10%. Just to get a picture of what that means for the economy, let me give you an example of one indicator, and this is the old age dependency ratio. Old age dependency ratio means the number of people over 65 for every 100 inhabitants between 15 and 64 that are the active class. This number at the moment is 25.2%. In 2050, it will be 48.5%, doubling. Now, I will let you imagine what this does for the social security system, for Romania's potential in general for a sustainable growth. Going into the volatility assessment, the indicators that I have to highlight are the negative ones, as Ileana was saying, current account balance, and obviously based on the discussion on exports that I just mentioned, this is a disadvantage. Current account balance in Romania is negative, whereas both the EU average as well as most of the peer countries have a positive current account balance. Again, another worrying indicator is the tourist nights per bed that has gone down. So tourism is a sector with good potential for contributing to economic growth that should be looked at more actively. Of course, related to the policy recommendations that we have. I think you all can tell from the topics that I have highlighted until now. It's stimulate FDIs, stimulate investments in general, as well as exports through well-targeted incentive packages, and Manuel touched very well on that, and they seem to be ahead of the game already. We did have a recommendation about the Foreign Investment Agency, but again, Manuel is way on top of that already. Of course, on the demographic challenge is very important to try to stimulate population growth. This can be done mainly through stimulating the birth rate. Just to mention, in Romania, fertility rate is 1.41, and it is lower even than the EU average of 1.55, and the EU is not doing that well in these regards either. I will wrap up my presentation on the general indicators, and I will move the microphone to Florin to talk about public policy, public administration.
Hello, everyone. I have the pleasure to take you through two very interesting subjects, public administration and infrastructure. These are actually two very hot subjects in our, let's say, daily discussions. Actually, I would classify them in the same category with football, in the sense that everybody is an expert, everybody knows what's to be done, and everybody actually can be the coach of the national team. I don't make a difference here. Actually, I struggled a lot to separate my feelings about the subjects from the pragmatic results of the report. But let's go one by one. Public administration. Actually, the term is pretty broad, and the methodology of the report looks at this via certain indicators, which are grouped in 4 categories. So it's costs of public administration, efficiency, judiciary, and overall governance. So in very simple terms, the question is, how is the level of taxation in Romania compared to other countries? How efficient is the system, and how is the level of governance, of ethics around this system? If we look at the graph, things seem positive. Maybe not, as we feel in the real world, but actually they are a mix of positive and negative evolutions. So I would summarize maybe in a few points. Despite having a tax rate which is on average with the European, which is in the same average with the European Union, the revenue which the states generates, the states collects from the economy as a percentage of the GDP is significantly below the EU average. The second point which I would summarize would be that Romania still pays in social benefits more than it collects from social contributions. So there has been significant improvement here, but still there is a lot to be done. A third point would be about availability of e-government, of online services, basically. Romania lags behind here EU average and behind most of its of the countries, the peer countries which we looked at. Another point would be around governance. This is by far the area where Romania, in terms of competitiveness, Romania struggles. The subject is, or let's say the indicators which the report looked at are softer and more difficult to quantify. We are talking here about political stability, rule of law, voice and accountability, and control of corruption. In all these indicators, Romania is behind the EU average, and actually only the control of corruption has made, or let's say we noticed improvements from the previous report. However, there is still a lot to do here, and we are still behind the other countries. I mean, just a second. So as you see, basically the situation from the previous report to the current report is relatively stagnant. The only improvement which we really noticed is, as I said, in terms of control of corruption. Now, in terms of let's say learning points or recommendations which the report makes, there are of course various, I'm not sure if you see here. Yeah. Now I know why. Okay, so here are a few of the recommendations which the report does. One comment which I want to make is that the spirit of the team in working on this report was a constructive one, and I think this is the tone of this report. We are not saying that things are a disaster. There are, as I said, good and bad examples. Yeah. But however, there are things that we would like to see. For instance, narrowing the gap between social contributions and benefits paid, or increased transparency and accountability, going to a stage where we publish the cost of public investments, including the bid prices and final cost. Implement corporate governance principles around whatever has to do with the public administration and with the state. Upskill the public officers, improve their remuneration and link it to performance. Define career paths, performance objectives, and annual evaluations. Increase availability of e-services, but not only availability, rather go farther than that and make everyone aware, increase awareness, and try even to educate population to be able to use them. As a last point, I would say that Romania and the public administration should get in the simplification game. I will move to the next subject, which is physical infrastructure. In this case, the report looks at the infrastructure from a broader angle than what we used to discuss every day. So the report or the indicators looked at things like communication infrastructure, yes, which is basically internet, to agriculture, to energy, to transportation and tourism. Romania's score in this area is below EU average. However, there is also a mix of positive and negative evolutions. And I will make a few comments about each category. In terms of internet infrastructure, there has been significant progress from the previous report. Internet is now more accessible in the country. However, we are still behind the EU average. So there is still to go here. Maybe as a personal observation, I'm pretty positive here. I think we have all ingredients to see improvement in this area, in the sense that we have good legislation, we have strong players in the market, we have a good referee, which is AmCham. We have an interested ministry which actually already went in the areas where the operators were not ready to go. Moving to agriculture, the report looks at two things, potential and results, meaning the size of the arable land in Romania and the value which we get from this land. As you probably guess, the results place Romania behind the EU average. Energy. Energy is actually a winner in this report, so it helps Romania's position in terms of competitiveness with the other countries. So basically, most indicators which are included in the methodology are above EU average. So basically, we generate good, or let's say reasonable, on average with the European Union, GDP per unit of energy used. We have a good share of renewable energy in the consumption. We don't have a situation where a significant player dominates the market of production. There is a good technical base in this country with also natural endowments, and also the prices are, let's say, slightly below EU average. Well, when it comes to transportation, this is a very dear subject to all of us. The report looks at indicators which should cover air transportation, motorways, railways, including people killed on the roads. However, it doesn't look at maybe catches things like what's the cost of building 1 kilometer of highway. Here I have no surprises for you. The report basically confirms the national frustration. Romania in this report is behind the other countries in, let's say, most of the indicators. But I will stop here. The graphs basically explains what I said. The situation is stagnant. The new competitive advantage is the percentage of the indicator showing the percentage of enterprises having a broadband connection. What would be the learning point here? The learning points? Well, continue or stimulate development of nationwide broadband infrastructure. Ensure strict implementation of the general transport master plan. So we have this master plan. Let's just execute it. Suggestions are in the area of enforcing multi-annual budgeting legislation to accelerate major projects. Ensure integration with regional businesses and maybe tourism initiatives. Transport infrastructure, again, focus on absorbing EU funds, as well as develop public-private partnerships. Redesign the contract awarding process by increasing transparency. And maybe I'll just boost agricultural advantage. I think Ileana here already mentioned there is a lot to do here, from improving the irrigation system to improving, let's say, the value which we export, so move from exporting raw materials to process foods. Maybe one last thing. If I am to pick, and maybe that's if you want a personal drive, if I am to choose one of these recommendations from both chapters, actually, I would go for focusing on broadband infrastructure. I mean, all measures are necessary, but some of them will take longer than others. So it will take time to maybe cross the mountains or move the mountains. Why I'm suggesting focus on internet infrastructure is I am a believer in the let's say two-speed Romanias. Yeah? If I go back to what Daniela was saying, if I imagine now what's in Anina, probably in Anina on the streets we see BMWs and carriages with horses. Clearly, those fantastic cars will not go far without, I mean, you know, I'm referring to the country. The country will not progress much until we put the, let's say, second Romania on wheels. As I said, there are many solutions to this, but probably communication infrastructure is the one which can help us jump years, and it can have an impact in education, in public administration, and in so many other aspects. Thank you very much. We'll move back to Sinziana.
We thought it would be good for our morning exercise to go up and down the stage. So I'm going to cover now another chapter of our report, and this is human resources. Ever since I was little, I always heard people talking about how good the Romanian schools are, how well Romanian pupils are prepared compared to those in other countries. And we're wondering, is this just a myth or is there some reality in it? And these, as well as other aspects of education and of healthcare, we tried to cover in this human resources chapter. Just to look at this myth versus reality, the figures that we looked into show that this is neither a complete myth, but not total reality either, because Romania's pupils are somewhat around the average of the EU in terms of math, science, and reading, and this is based on the scores measured by the OECD's PISA. This is a standard assessment done for 15-year-old pupils. Where we do better than the EU average is in language skills, as well as in the number of graduate students in tech, math, and science. Which is a good thing. The worrying aspect here is what are the perspectives for the future? How will the next generation of Romanians be educated? And here we saw some worrying indicators, one of them being the GDP spent on education. In Romania, we're spending only 3.1% of GDP in education compared to the EU average of 5.2%. And in effect, this percentage has gone down since 2011, when it was 4.25%. So this definitely is something that needs to be addressed. When we look at these human resources categories, the one that actually drags the most and basically created the lowest score in this segment compared to all other segments that were analyzed is the R&D. And the R&D is faring so poorly because, again, there's very little financing going into it. If we look at, in comparison with the EU average, we are only at 20% of the EU average in terms of percentage of GDP spent on R&D. And this has effects on other aspects of R&D and innovation, such as high-tech patents, for example. In high-tech patents applied per million of inhabitants, Romania is at 3% of EU average. And I will repeat that, 3% of EU average. What that means is that we are missing on a very important opportunity. We have the high-skill IT labor, but we need those entrepreneurs, we need those homegrown companies that are based on R&D and that are based on information, and that will and can put the basis for Romania's strategic economic development going forward. Within these human resources, we also looked at healthcare, and whereas all the other elements were stationary, healthcare actually is going down in score. Why? Because we are faced with an emigration of doctors, of medical staff. And this is impacting some of our indicators that we looked at, like doctors per 1,000 inhabitants, which in Romania is at 2.4 compared to 3.5, the EU average. In healthcare, again, we have the problem of financing, of the budget allotted to healthcare. Romania's expenditure per capita is 340 euros per inhabitant, and it's only at 15% of the EU average. In terms of volatility assessment, I want to look only at the positive side, and this is that one indicator, naming medium and high-tech employment, switched from a competitive disadvantage to a neutral. That means that as a percentage of overall labor force, medium and high and medium tech employees are growing. And this is something that is, I mean, we all know, we all hear about all these high-tech companies, IT companies like Microsoft, like Oracle, that are growing in Romania. And I want to give you an example from the industry that I know best, which is real estate. And to tell you that from the demand for office space last year, from the new demand, which means expansions or newcomers, 55% was represented by IT companies. This means overall around 50,000 square meters of office buildings, translated into around 5,000 employees that were added to this sector, and this is in Bucharest alone. In terms of recommendations, of learning points, we highlighted a few that we think are important, but here in human resources, as we saw, it is the lowest score and there is a lot to be done. Just to mention a few, we think it's important to bridge the gap between labor force education and the needs of the market. I mean, it's not enough to have well-educated people, you need to have employable people. We think it's important to reverse the brain drain that Ileana was mentioning, to try firstly to provide enough opportunities to keep the highly skilled individuals in the country, and as much as possible to reverse, to bring some of the people that have left back. Of course, with R&D so low, much attention needs to be put there, and funding is one of the ways to do that. If we had a perfect world, I would say that what we actually need is a complete transformation of the healthcare and education systems. But that's very difficult to be completed. These are complex systems, and very comprehensive approaches need to be taken. But if we can do one thing, we can increase the amount from the budget that is allocated to these sectors. Because we take the view that money spent efficiently on education and on healthcare, it's not actually expenditure. It is probably the best investment that we can do in the future of Romania. And with this, I will move to the next chapter, and this is fiscal and monetary policy. Here, the situation looks quite good. But before going into that, I want to say a few words of what fiscal and monetary policy should do. Basically, fiscal and monetary policy is the framework in which all the economic activity unfolds. And the main purpose of it should be to stimulate sustainable economic growth. And here I want to emphasize the key word is sustainable. In order for the growth to be sustainable, this fiscal and monetary policy should have also a stabilization aspect to it. That means that to the extent possible, it should foresee and try to mitigate the cyclical nature of the capitalist system, the ups and downs of the economy that is a characteristic and that are inevitable in our system. And hold that thought, because I will get back to that. Looking at the positive side, we're seeing notable improvements in Romania's fiscal and monetary policy. Low budget deficit, 1.4% in 2014, 1.2% in 2015. We're doing the best in terms of our peer countries, excellent also compared to the EU average. Romania remains, the public debt remains small, 40% of the GDP, again, one of the best in Europe. The interest rates have been declining. We are at all-time low. An important and interesting aspect is that the lending in RON has been growing and the one in euros decreasing, and we like a lot this development because it was actually one of the recommendations that we had in the 2011 AmCham report. So it does show that with well-focused policy measures, things can be achieved. Just to give you the numbers, in 2015, the lending in RON was increased by 20%, whereas the lending in euros decreased by 9.9%. Other positive aspects is improved country risk perception. This is measured by the 10-year government bonds, and again, also a stable exchange rate. But as you can tell, after all this good news comes a big however. And the however comes from the fiscal measures that were taken in 2015, that some of them have a pro-cyclical nature, with potential to destabilize the macroeconomic picture, and in the short term, with immediate impact on budget deficit and on inflation. In terms of budget deficit, the Fiscal Council estimates that the measures taken in 2015 will have around a 2 percentage points increase in budget deficit, which will take us dangerously close to not being able to meet our commitments to the EU bodies that need us to keep the deficit below 3%. The other aspect is inflation. Inflation will probably rise, and we will see that after the base effect that the VAT reduction wears off, and this will start in at the end of 2016. And some analysts even place the inflation expectations at 3-4% in 2017. In terms of volatility assessment here, things are pretty stable, but what's interesting to notice, though, is even though the monetary indicators have improved in Romania, if we compare them to the EU, they're not doing that great because the EU is doing better in terms of how fast the government bond yields decreased and inflation. In terms of recommendations, obviously the main recommendation is for the authorities to do everything possible to manage well the effects of these fiscal measures, the effect that they can have on budget deficit and inflation and generally the macroeconomic stability. This can be done by increasing collection rate and by improving the structure and efficiency of government expenditure. And I will get back to the cyclical nature of the economy. What pro-cyclical measures do is they accentuate both the growth but also the decline of the economies as it moves through these cycles. And if this happens, then you will see a country with a high volatility. A country with a high volatility is not considered a mature country. And again, to give you an example from my activity in the last few years, talking to foreign investors, I've constantly been hearing about Poland, how Poland did so well during the crisis, how a lot of foreign investment is going there because they view it as a stable, mature market. And indeed, Poland was the prodigy child of the past recession. While in the depth of the recession in Romania we had 7% contraction in GDP, Poland never actually contracted. They were growing in 2009 with 1.7%. What we would like to see from Romania and from the government is to take the necessary measures for Romania during the next recession to be able to become the new Poland. And this is, I will leave you with this thought, and I will turn back to Ileana, actually to Florin, for the legal part. Thank you.
Actually, on legal and regulatory framework, I will keep you just 1 minute. Here, the methodology, let's say, is not the same as for the whole report. So we didn't do any comparison, indicators, mathematics in this respect. What the report does It's a summary of each chapter, a description of what happened from the previous report to the current report. The report observes that, for instance, in terms of labor legislation picture, things improved. Now we have a more balanced approach. It also observes the effort and the results around the new fiscal code and fiscal procedures code. It also observes the intellectual property environment, which is under intense development, and the same with the public procurement package. The report also makes reference to some other global reports where Romania ranks better than several years ago. For instance, World Bank's doing a business report shows that Romania climbed from 72nd position to 37th in 2016. And the same World Economic Forum's competitiveness report placed Romania in 53rd place in 2015, up from 77th place in 2011.
How are you doing? Having fun? Do you like our report? The colors, at least. I mean, this was really chosen by the girls in, in our team. I just want to tell you some of the insights we get from the executive survey we've done. I will be very, very short. And then we are looking forward to get your questions. And for that part, I will ask my colleagues to join me also. So for the executive survey, as I mentioned at the beginning, we have basically asked the CEOs running businesses in Romania, how do they believe that the areas that we are analyzing can be better. It is subjective, but in the same time gave us some perspective. The bad news is that the business environment still still gives low scores to the policies. The good news, however, is that these scores are better than they were in 2011. So again, it's always how you look at things. Still, what I would share with you, and I think it's important from what most of you actually said when I'm looking in the room, just summarizing it. We have 95% of the respondents saying that the current economic policy needs to be changed in order to sustain higher level of growth. That's a lot, I think. We have 90, I said 95, yes, okay. We have 90, I am a number person. We have 97% believing corruption is still an issue. Out of this, 61 declared that the corruption has shifted the focus of economic policy and basically was not creating a fair and level playing field. And to finalize with the good news, however, most of them, like 90-something% of them, said that they plan to maintain the same level of investments or even increase them. So I guess after all, Romania is not such a not nice place to make businesses in. Now when they were asked about competitive advantages of Romania, they mentioned human resources, market size and potential, and also the fact that agriculture still remains an opportunity. I guess the funny part with these opportunities is how you present them. When you want something to increase, you say it's an opportunity. We really need to see something, I think, in agriculture. In terms of the good measures adopted, I would start by saying that 50% of them could not name any. Those who did said that it was very good that the social security and VAT reduction happened. They like keeping flat the income tax and the new labor code. Now, in terms of constraints, business environments is corruption, lack of infrastructure, and lack of consistency in government policies resulting in unpredictability of the environment. What the business environment, summarizing our findings, would recommend drawing up an economic growth vision for Romania. I think it's not easy to do that. Clear, simple, and predictable regulations, I would say that's not so much a lot to ask. And current policies to attract foreign investments and encourage startups. Most of these things already happen. As Florin also mentioned, we have looked at this report from the perspective of what is happening, what has happened already, and what we consider is still to be done. For sure, this is, I mean, as far as we try to be pragmatic, we have taken our personal views into it. I'm sure you noticed mine is agriculture. But behind this and going through the numbers and through the 100-sheet Excel file that we have, at the end of the day, what is important, I think, is these policy learning points. I will not go against them. It's a summary of what we have discussed. It's based on the data that we have discussed until now. You have a lot of details within our report. We have tried to figure out some, I mean, to make them as concrete as possible and to not to stay general and try to put our opinions on how things can be done. I'm sure, and we are all believe that things are not being done not because someone does not want to, but because they take time. But I think when looking and comparing 2011 with 2016's report, what we could say is that overall the balance of advantages and disadvantages remains similar with a slight improvement in the overall score. And it's a little confusing that things are going right in some areas, but then we are missing them in some other areas. So what we could get from here, that we need to accelerate a little bit the pace. So we are doing in the right direction, but let's do it faster, because the long ahead of us, I think it's, the way ahead of us is quite still long. Thank you very, very much for your patience and for being here with us today. Thank you, team, for what we've done together, and AmCham for ensuring the platform for this. And we remain at your disposal for any questions you would like to address us. Thank you.
Thank you, Ilana. And this is to show you the colorful reports. They are waiting for you as you leave the room. We are not done yet, but just to comfort you that you will get a copy. We printed it both in English and Romanian, and also we have it in electronic version. It will be uploaded on our website, so we can circulate it widely. So now we have a few minutes for some questions, if you have, regarding the findings, the recommendations, whatever you are interested to hear from the team.
We can also receive them afterwards, because I think
you
would like to take some time to go through them.
We can direct the questions later if you want. No comments, no.
We've been too self-explanatory, I would say,
yeah.
yes?
Okay, so
thank you.
Thank you, Ilana. Thank you very much. In closing the event, and as Daniela mentioned at the beginning, and also Ilana when she started presenting the results, we are putting this effort and the issuing of the second edition of the report under a wider umbrella, under a wider set of actions that AmCham is committed to take. And that is exactly what I would like Daniela to come back to the microphone and share with you. Thank you.
So almost lunch. Bear with me because this is really important. First of all, my special thanks to our brilliant team, our brilliant project team. I am truly impressed by, this is the result of the 6-month work, and they practically had a second job. I also need to thank their companies which dedicated them to this project, so PricewaterhouseCoopers, also Pfizer, Colliers, and KPMG, also our sponsor, which is Vodafone for this endeavor. Of course, our brave executive director, Anca Harasim, who mastered the coordination of this project, and our outstanding executive team who helped with everything to go right. So thank you again. But really, when we talk about all this and when we look around, definitely something is in the air. And we have chosen to call it Project Romania, and it's undeniable that the topic is everywhere around us. Recent years have seen numerous fragmented actions, failed ideas, and strategies, and 2016, it's already brimming with conferences and opinions on national development strategies. Voices are trying to articulate potential projections, the government is no longer with us. So indeed they showed up, but they are no longer here. But it doesn't matter. What matters is there are voices who are trying to project such options. What is important to understand, because we've seen the government mentioning the national strategies and the need for national strategies, in addition to the current interim mandate. We also know that there is an intensive, almost more than 1 year effort of the Romanian Academy to look into extensive sectorial approaches. And I would like to thank Vice President Academician Philip for joining us today. Thank you. It's a true honor to have you here. And the role of Academy is that of being an anchor for what is going to follow on these matters. Thank you. But also isolated voices from the business community and also from the civil society. However, the highest challenge is posed by our capacity to rally, to weed out distortions, and weld together all these complementary fragmented vectors, to activate and integrate them and ultimately validate them as a whole. The current stereotyped and obsolete paradigm will generate the same broken outcome, especially given the existing accruing risks. So if we continue to use the same vicious circle, we'll simply obtain the same results, there's no doubt. Transformation can only come from a totally different impact approach, from the creation of an open and honest country project process. And this can only be done by integrated relevant vectors without presetting the expected results. Such exercise cannot be initiated and led by one person, one government, one institution, or one party. There is no such way. It's important to understand that whoever plans to confiscate or capitalize unilaterally on such essential endeavor will fail inevitably, and will also fail Romania, and we simply cannot afford this. It is time now for us to leave the past behind, and it is time to look forward, as I was saying earlier this morning, to look forward to the future by design and not our future by default, as is happening these days. There's one success-proven method for such process. The methodology requires quite a change in the current mentality focused on conflicting controls and interests. It is built on the identifications of shared values, a visionary target, and priority goals. When we succeed in flying the same flag, then and sharing a unitary vision, for sure we will be able to forge ahead in real terms. And we definitely have to look beyond any personal, ideological, or circumstantial interests in a common mission that requires accountability, enduring determination, and of course, strong anchors. In order to gain momentum, because everybody's asking, how do we do this? What's to be done? Okay, so in order to gain momentum, such a concept should exclude from the start a unilaterally approach from one side or another of any barricade, should transcend the need of ownership or electoral or governmental credits, and not only should be built also on real substantial consultations. Of course, I'm talking about the need for an advanced and balanced democratic exercise for the benefits of the citizens of Romania and this country. The business environment has made unprecedented efforts to harmonize forces over the last 3 years. Acting as a catalyzer beyond its immediate perimeter, AmCham is confident in the successful calibration of a viable country project. Me personally, I pledge my time and energy to this purpose. Our duty is to really trigger the impulse to set the process in motion, as such project belongs to everybody without credit or partisan ambitions. The country has brilliant minds ready to become involved, while advanced methodologies and models exist for such complex missions. Once crafted, Project Romania will need to be undertaken through consensus and assiduously watched over for successful implementation. Now, why do we do this? That's the real question. Why do we do this? And the answer is because we can, and for sure because we care. So this is the simple reason. And this is also our call to stand up in good faith, reclaim the future of Romania, and really live by our hearts the dream of a great Romania. Thank you for joining us today. There is a lot of work that we have to do together. We are really looking forward to the extraordinary things that are to happen. Thank you.
Thank you, Daniela. I don't think there is much to add to that because it was, I guess, inspiring to all of you. Before we close, I would like, Mogurel.
Request. Can you send us the presentation that you have?
Of course, of course. We'll send it together with the report. And together with the report electronically, and you will get it outside. Before we close with the report, I want to invite and or remind you that tomorrow afternoon at 5 o'clock we have our annual general meeting. So we are waiting for you to attend the meeting. The board will present the activity report, financial report for the past year. So that's, and also we'll refer to steps ahead together with what Daniela presented here. We'll go in more detail tomorrow. And don't forget to also come and vote because we also have elections. Today's event was possible with the generous support of Vodafone, who supported us and was behind this event. So thank you, Vodafone. And at the very, very end, we would like to discriminate the boys again and thank the 3 ladies who participated to and worked hard day and night for, thank you very much. Thank you very much. And lunch is served outside, and we also, the team is available for questions and networking. Thank you.